Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to do It Came From the Network. The topic of this came from the network. Mid-South Wrestling from December 24th, 1983. Now the reason this was picked is because all during the month of July, we partnered with my friend Bucky749, the American Samurai, and his brother Jeremy, for Jeremy's Christmas in July. I picked this because I've long heard and I know that Mid-South is probably the most serious wrestling company there's been, at least in the last 40 years. So I wanted to see how they handled a show the day before Christmas, how it was brought in. And I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler, hardly at all. But anyway, let's jump right in. We grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. The first thing we get is Bill Watts saying that he gave Boyd Pierce the night off for Christmas. One of the few mentions. And then we get a montage or training segment with Mr. Wrestling 2 training Magnum TA, with Jim Ross doing the interview, being there. This is classic. I've seen this video probably 100 times in my lifetime, and not all related to this episode. I don't know if I've ever seen this actual episode before. So this is, like, again, one of those classic segments that gets played over and over again, especially when you're talking about Magnum TA and when you're talking about Mid-South Wrestling. Just a fantastic opening segment. I'm going to give that a 5. Now, coming from that, we go right into our first match of the show, which is Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Larry Higgins. Magnum TA joins Jim Ross on commentary. This was a good match, a little bit slower paced than what I would expected. Wrestling 2, I think, was getting a little bit older here, and had slowed down a bit. Not that he wasn't good still. This was still a good match. Mr. Wrestling 2 does pick up the win here. I'm going to give that a 3. Now next up we have Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Crusher Darso, who's Barry Darso later becomes Smash and Demolition in the Repo Man. At this point he's playing a Russian sympathizer who's teamed up with Nikolai Volkov. In both of these, everyone in here, Duggan, Volkov, and Darso, in a much more serious role than what most people would remember them for, unless you are someone that remembers old Mid-South Wrestling. This was really good. I enjoyed this. At the end of the match, we see the ref gets knocked out outside of the ring. Volkov comes in, attacks Duggan, pins Duggan, but kind of hides it so it looks like Darso's pinning him. The ref counts at 3, but then Magnum TA comes out, and another referee, Pee Wee Anderson, actually come out, and they convince the referee to switch the decision, which gives Duggan the win. And then Darso and Volkov attack, followed by Hacksaw Butch Reed and Jimmy Anvil Neidhart come out to attack as well, which brings out Lanny Poffo and Iceman King Parsons. So we get a whole fracas after the match. Duggan did pick up the win here. I'm going to give this one a 3 again. I thought it was good. A little bit too, for quote-unquote the serious wrestling company, a little bit too gimmicked afterwards, but I understand, it makes sense. Really cool to see Duggan in a more serious role and taken more seriously, because a lot of people think of him as that guy, the goofier guy later on when he was in WWE, which was great too, because that extended his career. But Duggan in Mid-South was a total badass, and he pretty much went in there. He was almost like, I guess you could say, like a Goldberg in that area, and kind of a guy that was one of their main guys, and just one of the toughest dudes they had there. Now coming from that, we get the Midnight Express. This version is Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton versus Coco Ware, not yet Coco Beware, and Mike Jackson, who, if you guys know Mike Jackson, he's still wrestling now. I believe he's close to 70. This was an awesome match. This was probably my favorite match of the show. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the Midnights when it's Condrey and Eaton. That's my favorite version of the Midnight Express. I really enjoyed this. Coco and Mike Jackson, really awesome wrestlers too, so they gave a really good match here. A faster paced match, a little bit more quicker than what we've seen so far. Not saying that what we've seen before was bad. This just sped the pace up more of an evolve, more of what we would see later in the decade and kind of going here. Midnights do pick up the win here. I'm going to give this one a 4 for the Midnight Express winning. It's, like I said, I really enjoyed this. This was probably my favorite match of the show. And the Midnights, of course, had Jim Cornette with them. From that, we get a highlight video for Terry Taylor. I'd love to know what the original song on this was. I know I probably could have Googled it, but I didn't want to take the 20 minutes. But it had some goofy, I guess, royalty-free songs behind it, but really good way to introduce Terry Taylor, who had not yet come into Mid-South. He'd become a big star in Mid-South. I like this video. I'm going to give the video a 4 too. Last but not least, we get the main event of the show. A tag team match. Hacksaw Butch Reed and Jimmy Anvil Neidhart versus Leaping Lanny Poffo and Iceman King Parsons. I've said on several of my videos, when I look back and I watch videos of Parsons, I love Iceman King Parsons. He was great. Reed and Neidhart are awesome here. Again, Neidhart a little more serious than what we're used to in the Hart Foundation. Lanny Poffo with a little bit more serious than what we would get used to in the WWE or WWF. Common thread here, Hacksaw Butch Reed, I don't think his seriousness, he was a little goofy with the natural Butch Reed stuff, but I don't think he ever got out of that serious role. Like, he was always taken seriously. This was another fantastic match. It ends up where the ref loses control. Both guys keep fighting. Both teams keep fighting with each other. Won't stay out of the ring. Ends up in a double DQ. I'm going to give it a 4. We end the show with Cowboy Bill Watts basically wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays. Hopes that your holiday season's been fine or been great. So that's the extent of it. We had a couple little blurbs about it being Christmas time. One thing I did forget to mention. On the Duggan versus Crusher match, Crusher Darso, I believe he became Crusher Khrushchev in Crockett, Jerry the King Lawler was on commentary, and he was on commentary for the main event too. I believe they said this was his first time in Mid-South, and if I heard it right, Jim Ross said that this was his first time on Mid-South commentary. So that would mark this as the first time that Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler commentated together, which to me is awesome. I mean, one of the great commentary teams of all time. Right up there with Gorilla and Bobby the Brain Heenan. I love, I mean, who doesn't love JR and the King? It's right up there with Dave Brown and Lance Russell. All the great combinations of all time. This is right up there with them, and this might, to my knowledge, I think this was the first time they commentated together. I might be wrong. It felt like they said that there, and I really think it was, because Lawler said it was his first time in Mid-South, so why else would he commentate with Jim Ross, who hadn't commentated anywhere else but Mid-South at this point? I digress. Just an awesome little tidbit there. Awesome show altogether. I'm going to give the show a 4. I thought it was really good, really fun. Even if it didn't quite fit the theme as much as some of the other shows we've watched, it was awesome for that little nugget. That feels like a Christmas present. I guess that fits in here. And seeing that opening montage, which again I've seen 100 times. All in all, a really good show. With all that being said, smash that like button, share, subscribe if you haven't. And if you made it all the way to the end, let me know you made it to the end. We're doing everything Christmas themed this month. So let's see. We've done Frosty, we've done reindeers, we've done Christmas, we've done eggnog. Let's put mistletoe in the comments if you made it all the way to the end. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, And this has been my review of Mid-South Wrestling from December 24th, 1983.